Hello everyone, today we have an interesting one. I was looking for a deck or trying to figure out a deck that you could use Negasonic with and not feel at a disadvantage, because Negasonic is one of my least used cards. Ever since I bought her, I have kind of put her into the dust collection and just left her there. I've played Living Tribunal more, I've played probably Snowguard, she's right up there with Snowguard. But I don't think her ability is all that bad. It's just you have to play it a lot more strategically, and you can't guarantee her benefit. So certain decks she's not going to be great with, but other ones, I think that she has some decent merit. So you can use her on 4 into a Professor X on 5 if you have initiative, which with this deck, we're looking to have early initiative and be able to pump power and control the game every step of the way. We have Cosmo to block strong on reveal abilities. If somebody, I don't know, like a Patriot list starts putting things behind an Invisible Woman lane, you can park your Negasonic into that location, and then as soon as that card behind the Invisible Woman lane reveals, it will get destroyed. So if it's a Patriot, if it's a Taskmaster, they're not going to be able to utilize that anymore, and it's just going to be, at that point, very tough to play around that location. We also have things to control the board state, like we can hide our Ebony Maw, we can hide our Maximus, we have Zero, we can reinforce that location a little bit with a Jeff. So if they're already winning and leading that location, we can shift our Jeff over into that lane without having Negasonic blow up, as long as we played him in another lane first. And so we're going to be jumping into a gold Conquest run with this deck. I've been using this in Proving Grounds and Silver, and it's been very strong. I'm excited to jump into gold with it and see how it does. Let's go ahead and jump straight in to battle number 1. All right, first up we have Akuma Matata. The first location is Nova Roma, so it allows us to draw into an additional card. We get our Ebony Maw, and we have our Invisible Woman, so we're able to use the Ebony Maw behind the Invisible Woman lane. The hub gives us Super Scroll. We see Kitty Pryde right off the bat, so it could be a bounce deck. Now, something I kind of like with Negasonic is being able to destroy the Kitty Pryde when you have priority, which Kitty Pryde decks are very good at dropping. And so if they have an Angela plus a Kitty Pryde, then you can start really maneuvering that location. Now, they have a hood in this left lane. I'm thinking they probably want to do like a Beast Bounce. If we had Cosmo, we could almost guarantee that we restrict what... Oh my gosh. We could almost guarantee that we restrict what they play and win in this location. Now, we're not going to reveal this turn. We have initiative, so we'll have initiative going into the next turn. Let's go ahead and play just our Ebony Maw. I think they do like a Kitty Pryde. Next turn, they'll do something plus a Beast here, and having initiative, we'll be able to block the majority of what they can pull back in. And so I'm going to go ahead and snap into it. I think we have a pretty good read on what kind of deck the opponent's running. And if they're running a deck that wants to run a Viper to send over the junk, if they want to run a Valkyrie to right-size the hood, either way, we're going to be able to block and lock this location in with the Cosmo play. Now, if they have a Killmonger, I guess that is countered, but that's a lot less likely. So let's go ahead and drop our Cosmo. We have initiative. We have the 7-power surprise in the hub, which is going to be fantastic. I think they do 2 cards here, one being Beast, so like a 1-cost and Beast. Maybe they're Demon. They go ahead and play onto the board. No, they do 3. They do a spread. Interesting. Oh, the Deathlock. Okay, so it is a destruction deck. A destroy deck with Kitty Pryde is super interesting. Maybe they have Phoenix Force as well? That threw me completely off guard. Was not expecting that at all. So we could do a couple of things here. We can do an armor, just as that second set of like reassurance in that location. We could do a Professor X lock to make sure that a Nimrod doesn't get past us. A destroyer here would be actually pretty big. I almost want to do Professor X in the right lane. Something tells me we Professor X over there. Next turn, we can always do like our Maximus, maybe a Negasonic to add some protection to this left lane. We could do Sentry plus our armor. We can do Maximus, Negasonic. We could do a Tuma armor. We have a couple ways to do it. Oh, they double stack in the right lane. Bucky Barnes and Venom. That is unfortunate. So they get a really big right lane. We should have Professor X locked the left. That's unfortunate. So we lose that location every time. What do they do? A destroyer here, and they have initiative. If we had initiative, we just protect this lane with our Negasonic. We would do something like Maximus and then Negasonic, assuming we win here. But they did get the good right lane. We have to worry about their destroyer, which I assume they have, and they can play into the Cosmo lane. And so we had some good reads. The Professor X just was not the play. We should have went for raw power instead. I was going for a Hail Mary. We wanted something beautiful, and it just didn't work in our favor. Throne Room is pretty decent. Let's go ahead and skip now. I assume they have a Killmonger, so we have to look out for them being able to destroy those 1-cost cards. So like the Ebony Maw, the Zero, the Titania. We want to use those a little bit more strategically. I'm going to go ahead and play Invisible Woman into the Great Web. We have to assume that our cards are going to get pulled over, and if we are relying on her in a different location, it becomes a liability to stack anything behind her. So we are going to go ahead and play into the Great Web. Now, something cool that we could do to reveal a card behind the Invisible Woman is like drop an armor into the Throne Room and then have it yank over in the Great Web. That could be pretty, decent, but let's do our Ebony Maw. We have a lot of really good cards here already. I'm just going to do Ebony Maw and Jeff. That gives us a lot of power, a lot of surprise power in the Great Web, and it's going to be safe from Killmonger. It's going to be safe from any kind of destruction, and that is going to be fantastic. Now, they do have a demon. We know they have Kitty Pryde. Super strange deck that they have, though. And so Jeff is actually decent for us at allowing us to play into different locations and move him out eventually. I don't think they're going to have a way to zero out the Akuma, but at the same time, I don't really want to hide him because we already have a lot of power here. I guess we can hide him here, and then that's pretty much all of the power we need. After that, we just bombard the other locations. So 0 Maximus, 0 Titania. Yeah, we'll go ahead and stack heavily here. And then we'll be able to flood the other 2 locations afterwards. Okay, so the Sabretooth and the Demon come down. The Demon is huge. Getting hit with Wakanda Dynasty doubles up that power, which is massive for them. 0 and Maximus is going to be, I think, a solid play. But the issue becomes we don't have initiative, and we're not going to have initiative. We can always 0 Titania Negasonic. We can also 0 Titania Negasonic. That will protect this lane a little bit. We have a lot of power here, and I don't think they're going to anticipate how much we have in that middle location. Ooh, they go ahead and Venom. Wow, that is a big, big Venom. So if they have a Null, Null becomes very, very tough to deal with, because they've destroyed quite a bit of power. Killmonger, we don't have to worry about quite as much because it will hit their demon. They have initiative, so whatever we play isn't huge here. This protects from, I mean, they could do Sabretooth and then their Null, which would be massive. That would get rid of the Negasonic, plus they could do their big drop. But I think we fill up the Great Web. I think we do this. We move our Jeff over perfectly fine there. The Great Web would either pull one of their 2 cards, if that's what they go with. I think we're okay here, because we have a lot of power here. This is well over the 22 power. It just comes down to winning one of the other locations, and they have Great Web very loosely open. So I'm going to snap back. This could be for the entire run. We're that confident or optimistic. I don't know which. The Great Web, I think, is going to stab them in the back because it will be capped out on our end. That means it's going to pull one of their cards over here, hopefully giving us the opportunity to win. Oh, they stack all in the Throne Room. Interesting. Okay, so the Death, the Kitty Pryde, the Demon, that's huge in the left lane. Their Kitty Pryde pulls over, but our middle location is much, much bigger than 24, or it should be much bigger than 24. They had an opening, had Demon pulled over, had their Sabretooth pulled over, had something bigger pulled over into that location. They could have won that one. We did get very, very lucky. We got very fortunate with what pulled over. We will take the 8 cubes. And sometimes we can sigh a breath of relief because that was very, very close and it could have flipped either direction. But now we have a really big lead going into the next couple of rounds. And so we have our 0, we have Negasonic, we have Maximus. Fantastic opening. Now, Murder World is more advantageous for them. We haven't seen a lot of their deck, actually. We're still missing 4 cards. I assume one is Destroyer, maybe a Shuri and a Nimrod somewhere. But, oh, Shuri's Lab is unfortunately very, very big for them. If they get their Kitty Pryde, we can always try to snipe it with our Negasonic. If we have initiative, we can play Negasonic and let their Kitty Pryde get destroyed, which is going to be huge. Let's play the armor in the left lane. That will stop the Hood and anything else that they want to get destroyed here from getting destroyed. So a Wolverine, a Bucky Barnes, not going to get destroyed today, my friends. And so now we, yeah, we get the fist bump. We'll go ahead and fist bump them right back. Do we go ahead and guard this location with the Negasonic? Or do we, I mean, we could do something like 0 and Titania just to get a lot of value here. We can do the Maximus, but that draws them additional cards. I almost want to do Negasonic into Shuri's Lab, but at the same time, that's not huge. Let's do this. I'm not a huge fan of stacking this heavy into the left lane, but it's what we're going to do. This will make sure we have initiative. If this is Kitty Pryde, oh no, it's Deadpool. Interesting. Okay. We have to watch out for the Deadpool play. Now, if they eventually consolidate with a Venom, we could snipe it with the Negasonic. So Sentry won't be great this turn. How confident are we? We're fairly confident in this. We do Maximus. Yes, it muddies our draw. Yes, it gives them additional reach, but we slap a Professor X into the Lechugio on the last turn. We're then free, on turn 5, we're then free to do our Sentry in Murder World, a Negasonic for protection. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's go with the Maximus. The Maximus and a prayer. They do have Deathlock come down. It destroys the Deadpool. They can now play him again. He doubles up, which that is going to get really large, really, really fast. I hope that that this is going to be sustainable. Let's go with the Professor X. I don't think they're going to burst anything bigger over there. I don't think. Only one card has actually been destroyed, and that is the Deadpool. So their death is still unplayable right now. Venom wouldn't do it. Sabretooth. Noel wouldn't do it. I think we're okay. Could be Copium, but I think we're all right. With the armor, that's a... Ooh, wow. That is a lot of cards over there, my friend. The Deadpool. Kitty Pryde. And the Carnage. Okay. Whew. I'm not sure why they played over there, unless they were expecting the Professor X. And a Nova Destruction still won't get them within range, so that is great. And then we get the fist bump, so I think they are. Yeah, I think they are accepting defeat. We will close out the first round against the Destroy deck in 3, and that is going to be our first match towards our next Infinity ticket. Let's go ahead and finish off this battle, and we will jump straight into battle number 2. All right, jumping straight into battle number 2, let's go ahead and queue up with our Negasonic control. So things like Armor, Cosmo, and definitely Negasonic have been underutilized pretty recently. And so we're able to block a lot of the things that have started getting through. We're starting to lean a lot more on like combo-driven decks. And so we can use some of those cards in our favor to block the Spider-Man play, to block the Destructions, to block the Beast Bounce. A lot of really solid ways to utilize these resources. All right, next up we have Drae. We had a little bit of a wait time, but next up we have Drae. The first location is Gamma Lab. We don't have a great way to lock that down necessarily. And so we're going to go ahead and skip. We don't know what kind of deck Drae is running. We don't have a Shang-Chi built in because we're looking to just outvalue and outpower the opponent, position our Negasonic where it destroys on our end and takes away that big resource or a big resource from them. Gamma Lab's not going to be our friend unless we can get more than they can there. So they're playing a Wasp. They're doing a Patriot deck. So this is actually a pretty solid location for them. So with the Wasp, a Patriot is going to buff up their Hulks quite a bit. We probably don't have to worry so much about a Shang-Chi. But I still don't like the look of this hand. We're going to retreat out for 1. There's a feeling, I don't know. We didn't have a good setup for it. And I had a feeling that it wasn't going to swing our way. With the second location being turn restricted, we could get some value there, but then we're going to have to rely on like a Cosmo to block them from getting that ability to spread, and they can push power after the fact and just get quite a bit of value. They snap on turn 1. They, I don't know. They may have mistook our tactical retreat for weakness. We're definitely staying in now. So we have the 0. We have Ebony Maw. They could have a really good setup for like the Patriot, the Invisible Woman. Negasonic is going to be pretty decent for us against the Invisible Woman. So we can park her behind the Invisible Woman or sometime after they play Invisible Woman. And then whenever their card reveals, like, I don't know, a Patriot, an Iron Lad, it will get destroyed immediately after. Let's go ahead and do Ebony Maw. We do have our Cosmo. We have Professor X to lock a location. Ebony Maw goes to the right, which so far is good unless that turns into a bad location. No, Elysium. Okay, so we have both Cosmo and Negasonic now. Beautiful value for us. We'll go ahead and snap back into it. We're going to play the Cosmo outright now. We do have Iron Man from the hub, and with the Elysium reduction, it's not bad. So depending on what they play here, I don't think they necessarily play an on reveal, but if they do, we're going to block it with the Cosmo. So something like a Brood, Mr. Sinister is not going to trigger any Elysium. They do go ahead and get their Patriot down. And so they do go ahead and play that one. And so we have initiative. Depending on what they play, we can go ahead and Professor X lock. Let's do Professor X and Titania. We're going to heavily lock in that Elysium lane. And then we have our Sentry, our Negasonic. I think if they play a card, they play it into Aunt May's this turn. If not, maybe they go with something like a Blue Marvel. Maybe they go something like Iron Man, but it's not going to be huge for them. And we're gambling for 4 cubes very early on, and it is like the Blue Marvel. And so they're not going to be able to invest more into the Elysium lane. Their other cards get a pretty good bump, but I don't think it's going to be big enough. Right now, in Aunt May's, whatever they play will bounce out. I think we're going to do Sentry, then we do Iron Man and Negasonic. We should have initiative in Aunt May's. Whatever they play as their last play here will get blown up. We have the secretive Invisible Woman if we decide to pivot, but I think the Iron Man from the hub is going to allow us to just elevate this lane drastically. And so they play 3 cards, so that Mr. Sinister is not going to trigger because of Cosmo, so they don't get the vanilla bonus. And then the Super Scroll. Okay, interesting. So this lane is actually locked down now as well because of the Super Scroll. So that was feels a little bit silly. Because now what can they do? They can't Onslaught. Okay. I think they forgot about Super Scroll grabbing all of those pieces. And so we are going to take the early 4 against the Patriot deck. I assume it's the Invisible Woman Patriot, but their Super Scroll is going to be a big liability for most of their games now. And so we're going to take the early 4, see if we can close this one down relatively quickly. And so the first location is Shuri's Lab. It's pretty big for us, not necessarily for them. Patriot decks typically don't have really tall cards or the ability to go incredibly tall. And so they're looking to buff their cards to have that good high power across the board, but a lot of that comes from those buff resources. And so Shuri's Lab, I think we can lock down pretty easily. We may have to worry about a potential like Onslaught and Iron Man there, but unless they just heavily stack that location, it should be, I think, relatively easy. Now we have our Invisible Woman to hide some cards if we feel like we need to. Hide the Akuma, hide the Sentry. We have our 0. We also have our Cosmo, which is fantastic. We're going to go ahead and do Invisible Woman into the Forge. Now, that will give them the sign that they don't have to worry about a Cosmo in that location or a Professor X, and so they can adjust from there. I thought about just not playing it, but I feel like we need to. Ooh, this could be rough. So Sakar's going to pull into something. Our Sentry our Akuma, our Professor X. I feel like we have to do Cosmo in this right lane just in case it pulls into like our Sentry, because that would take up 2 of the remaining spots and it just wouldn't be great. Let's do Cosmo and hope that it pulls into our Professor X maybe. And then if it pulls into Akuma, that's unfortunate because Akuma will get destroyed, but that's the 1 out of 5. The 1 out of 5 shot there. It is the Sentry. Okay. Could have been better, but it also could have been much worse. So their Mr. Sinister is not going to duplicate courtesy of the Cosmo play. Let's now do Akuma into the Forge. We're not going to get any more Sentinels back in return. We could also do this. We could also do the 0, the Maximus next turn. That sets us up for a pretty big Professor X, allowing us to Akuma still in the Forge, or we could always Akuma. No, we can't. We can't Akuma into Sakara. It'll get destroyed. But that gives us a little bit more flexibility in how and where we can play. And it positions us with quite a bit of power onto the board. So let's go 0, let's go Maximus. And if we get a good top deck, depending on what this is, we may snap into it. Iron Lad is big. What does Iron Lad pull here? Iron Lad pulls the Onslaught. Ooh. Let's go ahead and Professor X the left lane. If they throw down a Patriot, we will win the left lane. If they throw down Iron Man, this lane becomes very, very problematic. We do have Jeff to use alongside the Akuma on the last turn, so that is an added benefit. So we can use Jeff into the Professor X locked lane, and maybe they go Dazzler. Ooh, interesting. The Dazzler play. And so everything that they get capped out will buff Dazzler by 4. I don't know. I think we have a shot here. Let's do Akuma. Let's do Jeff in the left lane. I think we'll need a little bit of extra padding, but I think the Jeff getting doubled by Shuri's Lab should do it. I'm not confident enough to snap into this, but I am confident enough to stay for 2. The Jeffrey comes down. They do get the Ultron, which is only 8. It's going to help fill up the right lane. It helps their Dazzler out quite a bit, but our Akuma coming down is going to come over the top of the Ultron, and we're able to hold down the 2. We shouldn't have doubted ourselves. We shouldn't have doubted the control that this deck can provide. Let's jump into round number 4. See if we can start kind of inching towards closing this out. They have 4 bars of health left. Central Park is actually really big for them. If they get their Patriot, Blue Marvel, their buff components, it's a lot harder for us to Professor X lock a location now because they have those already in place buff cards. Let's go Invisible Woman to the left. We can always 0 in Jeff. We can do 0 in Maximus on 4 to get some reach into the big house. The Lechugia becomes a bit problematic, but their Ultron would have to be positioned here. I think we're going to play into the Lechugia. It feels wrong, but I think that's our play. Cosmo, next turn we can do 0 or just Maximus, and then we can hide the 0 behind the left lane. We can then position a Professor X on 5, angling towards the Lechugia. That's the direction we're wanting to go with the Professor X lock, is being able to put it into the right lane. They do get their Patriot, which is unfortunately very fortunate for them. 0 Maximus, set up a Professor X and an Akuma. Now, they're going to have some big resources. I don't know that we overcome those big resources, but we'll see. They haven't snapped into it. Their on reveal has become a lot less impactful in this right lane. Now, they could do a Debris. Ooh, a Debris would be beautiful. Debris into the big house? That would be like the perfect read. Blocking here and here, leaving us only space to play into this lane. Oh no, you did they? I got that retreat ready. I had that retreat button ready because that would have been beautiful. That lock would have been insanely strong. Let's go with the Professor X now. I think they do kind of get the hint that we are angling towards a Professor X lock over there. So Iron Man? Iron Lad. What does it hit? It hits a rock. Okay. The Onslaught here would elevate this lane quite a bit. But it's not super strong, but I think it's a risk that we're willing to take. Onslaught would only give them an extra 4 here. They can also do Iron Man in the left. Ooh, no, just Ultron. Interesting. So they do go for the Ultron play. I still think that's more than what we can pump out. We only have an extra 13 hidden behind the Central Park lane. It's still interesting. We only lose that one by 3. Had we been able to do like our Maximus instead, maybe it would have been beneficial. All right, so we do take the 2 cube loss against Drae. Let's see, we're in double stakes now. We finally see our Negasonic. Negasonic could do us some pretty cool things. Death's Domain is unfortunate if they get their Ultron off, but if they don't, it's decent. We have armor so that we can play there early if we don't get the Professor X lock. Or maybe we just use armor on the last lane or the last turn, looking to have a Cosmo block against their Ultron as well. I'm just going to skip here. We're going to skip and gather some information. The Mr. Sinister in Death's Domain is big. And so they lose the they lose the non-vanilla portion and they keep the vanilla card over there. Okay. So Stark Tower could offer us a decent amount of benefit. Let's do 0 Ebony Maw. We know that, I assume they don't have a Killmonger. They could. We also haven't seen an Invisible Woman. They could have the Killmonger counter, but I don't think they do. Their tech slots are typically the Dazzler and the Debris slot, and they have both of those. And actually, Super Scroll is also a little bit of a tech slot most of the time as well. So we can go ahead and do Cosmo. We could do Sentry, but it would pull, no matter where we played it, it would fill up this right lane. We don't want to do that just yet. Let's go Cosmo counter into mid. That would leave only the right lane that they could do their Iron Lad, their Ultron, those big plays. And we'll see. We'll see. We do have Professor X to lock in this right lane, which I think we go with, yeah? Lock in the right lane. They will have initiative, so Negasonic isn't going to benefit us all that much. We can always do the Sentry and the Armor on the last turn, maybe both into the left lane. I kind of like that. I kind of like Armor and then Sentry both in the left lane on the last turn as that kind of surprise play. And if they stick this one all the way out, it'll be for 4, and so I'm not going to snap into it because I don't want to scare them off. Being that it'll be the same result either way, I don't want to scare them into leaving. I also kind of want to see the result of this turn 5 play to see if they stack here. Like if they do Super Scroll, it pulls over. If they do Dazzler, it pulls over. Iron Lad pulls over. So I think Brood is really the only thing they could play in this lane, and even one of those would pull over. And so there is the Brood. One pulls over, but the vanilla card stays in Stark Tower, which is unfortunate. If they have the Ultron. Not the Ultron. If they have the Onslaught. I guess 2, 4, 6. It would result in a tie here, right? If we had initiative, this would be a lot easier. It's a slam Negasonic into Asteroid M type of game. Ooh, Sentry's actually going to pull over into Asteroid M. So we would have to do this. That gives us 8 here. What if they do Onslaught? That's more than we can handle there. This is more raw power than the armor play, and since we're not looking to do anything cheeky, I think this is what we go with. It comes down to having priority or not here. Onslaught is big. We haven't seen the Onslaught, but that brings them up to like 13. We're a little bit above 13, but it comes down to the tiebreaker. I think we lose the tiebreaker, but I am going to stick this one out and see if maybe we can Ultron. Oh, Ultron into the Cosmo lane. We are able to hold down the 4. Not the in-game play that I thought they were going to go with, but the one that I am absolutely okay with. We will take the 4 bars of health against Drae, closing out in 5 rounds in the second Gold Conquest battle. Negasonic didn't get to prove us much value there, but she's there as support if we need her. In the first round, we got to use her once to kind of protect a lane. In that matchup, without the Invisible Woman, and without being able to control priority in most of those matches, we weren't able to grab it. We are going to go ahead and jump over straight into battle number 3, see if we can close out this next Infinity ticket. All right, so jumping straight into battle number 3 for our next Infinity ticket. Potentially for our next Infinity ticket. All right, for our final big bad, we have Moopwax. Maybe. So the first location is Shadowland. It's going to give us a negative ninja. I think that's okay. We have our 0 in our opening hand. We have Jeff, Negasonic, Cosmo, some fantastic counter cards. Now we do have Ebony Maw. which we will probably angle to play next turn, but we have to, in these early rounds or matches, we have to be concerned with potentially a Killmonger. Now they have the Invisible Woman, which is big. Invisible Woman is great, but we're gonna be able to hide the Negasonic behind that lane and take away a lot of that upside that they get. Let's go ahead and do our Cosmo. They can probably stack quite a bit of their, quite a few of their resources here. Let's do 0, Ebony Maw, and then Armor. We're going to fully go in and protect this right lane. We have the Cosmo. We're going to have Negasonic in mid to be able to leverage whatever they play initially behind the Invisible Woman. So I'm going to go ahead and snap into it. I do wish we had Professor X to get an early lock, because we're going to be running low on resources after this point. But as far as everything else goes, we have a pretty good initiation. So like if they threw an Onslaught down first, we're going to be able to destroy it. If they used an Iron Lad, they're not going to be able to pull anything because of the Cosmo, and we get some pretty decent reach there because of it. Let's go ahead and play our Sentry. We want to get this lane as stacked as possible before the Negasonic comes down, because Negasonic, as long as it's the last card that's played in this lane before the game ends, Invisible Woman will destroy whatever this is right here. And so it's going to destroy the first card that they flip, which I assume is probably their Patriot. We don't know that for sure. That's just the assumption that I'm making. And so if we fully stack here, now let's hold this. The chances of us drawing another usable card, do we go? Nah, let's go ahead and do Negasonic. Go ahead and play our Negasonic into mid. And that will be the last card we play here. On the next turn, we could either do Akuma, Maximus, maybe a Professor X if they're looking to do an Ultron. But I think the time is now. I think we go ahead and make sure we get Negasonic down. They do go ahead and cap out that middle location. Negasonic is going to act as that protector, making sure that they can't do anything. Whatever they put here is going to be sorely countered. Let's do the Maximus in the right lane. I want to try to push to make sure we can win this one. And then I think we move our Jeff. Nah, we're never going to win Shadowland. So we're just going to leave this as is and hope that it's enough to overcome that. And so we'll see. We'll see if the 20 power in the right lane, we do force the retreat from the Negasonic, because that was probably going to be their Patriot. And then maybe an Iron Lad. Their Patriot, maybe an Onslaught as well, an Iron Man, but it was going to be much more restrictive after the Negasonic came down. And so now they're going to have to second guess every single time they put something behind the Invisible Woman lane. And so if that is something that becomes more and more popular, Negasonic is going to be a great way to counter whatever they think or thought they were safe with. And so Atlantis comes down in the left lane. Death's Domain in mid is pretty big. We can definitely overcome it. We have the Akuma plus we have Invisible Woman plus Akuma. So if we can get Cosmo off in one lane and Professor X lock another, we can get some pretty good benefit. Now if they have Mr. Sinister, if they have Brood, both of those are going to be huge in the Death's Domain location, which they do. They do have the Mr. Sinister, so they're at least going to get some value there. We'll be able to get a little bit as well, but not a lot. And so that is what they snapped into. That's what I assumed they probably snapped into. So the last location is Xandar. Actually, we can just play for that lane, right? Let's go ahead and Cosmo in the right lane. We always have our Armor plus Maximus, Armor, Invisible Woman, Armor, Akuma to lean in on in Death's Domain if it looks like we have another lane like pretty comfortably locked in. And so the Cosmo comes down. Hopefully this is something that would have been an on reveal. The Patriot, okay? They go ahead and just play the Patriot outright, which is interesting. What do we do now? Maximus, we could always shoot the Titania over their way, trying to cap out that lane. But I like just doing maybe just Maximus here. It's either that or we go Armor plus Invisible Woman. But I kind of want to leave the middle location Armor Akuma as a surprise for the last turn. And so we want to keep that in mind as we navigate this next turn, our turn 5 play. Okay, so the Dazzler. An Ultron seems more and more likely. An Ultron here would be pretty big. It would give them a decent bump here and in this location. I know I wanted to save this, but I don't think we can anymore. We have to make them wonder if the Ultron in Atlantis is big enough. So let's go Armor, Invisible, and we'll go Titania. And that leaves our last turn a little bit more open than it would have been otherwise. So they go one more card in Xandar. Can't be the Ultron. It could be Iron Man to go really big in Xandar. There's the Iron Man. So now we worry about Ultron. Ultron filling up this left lane big. That's 2, 4, 6. I guess an Onslaught is not huge. And Ultron, though, Ultron here won't trigger. Ultron here. So they do an Ultron here. That brings it up to 12. 3, 6, 9, 14. Ultron here is 1, 2, 3. So 3, 6, 9 plus the 4 is 13. 3, 6, 9 plus the 5. We would beat Ultron here. We would beat Ultron here. I think we're okay. I almost want to snap into this. If my math was correct, anyways, then we win. Tuma's gonna go over their Ultron. They could have a Wasp, maybe? I don't know. Let's go ahead and lock it in. The Onslaught is big. The Wasp in the left lane is big, but not big enough. They stuck that one out. What? Why'd they stick that one out? I mean, the Onslaught in Xandar was big. No matter what they put over there, they had that lane very comfortably locked. Maybe they just didn't feel comfortable about being able to come back in a different location or a different game. That was a lot faster than I anticipated. That was a lot faster than I anticipated. We didn't get to use Negasonic all that much. We didn't get to use Professor X all that much. But it is there. We have a lot of ways to grab initiative, to lock down different decks, and we have a lot of combo decks right now. A lot of strong owner reveals that Cosmo has so much value, and he can find a place almost anywhere. And so we will go ahead and take the 2-round battle number 3 gold conquest victory, giving us another infinity ticket. We're working on our stores. We are working on building them up so that we can slam some infinity gauntlet or conquest whenever it opens. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.